President Buhari makes judicial appointments. The Supreme Court has spoken. Buhari's victory is upheld. In international news, Brexit on hold as British lawmakers back December 12 general election. And in sports, Confederation of African Football (CAF) approves Uyo as match venue for 2021 AFCON qualifier between Super Eagles and Benin Republic.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The Supreme Court has dismissed the appeal filed by the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and its presidential candidates in the February elections, Atiku Abubakar. They were challenging the victory of President Muhammadu Buhari and the All Progressives Congress in that election. PDP National Chairman Prince Uche Secondus says the final judgment of the Supreme Court on Wednesday belongs to God. Secondus says Nigerians should be commended for their commitment to democracy and its tenets, even in light of inhibiting factors. He reacted in a statement from his media office signed by Ike Abuni, saying that the nation's apex court is ruled, but the final judgment comes from God Almighty. Secondus says people should remain resolute in their prayers. As he put it, the country is in such an untidy state that only God can bring it out. President Muhammadu Buhari has sent a letter to the Senate asking that Justice John Tehembe Toso be confirmed as the Chief Judge of Nigeria's Federal High Court. The letter was read out by Senate President Ahmad Lawan on Tuesday. Judge Soho was sworn in July in an acting capacity. The president also sent a separate letter to the Senate requesting the confirmation of Benedict Fakwa Kanyeb as president of the National Industrial Court. He also sought the confirmation of 3 nominees as resident electoral commissioners of the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) for Borno, Bayelsa, and Osun State. An Ikeja High Court in Lagos has set November the 12th to hear the suit filed by former Governor Akeem Ambode against the State House of Assembly. The State Assembly probe is probing the purchase of more than 800 buses in the bus reform project during Ambode's administration. Ambode is suing the State Assembly, its Speaker, Mudashiru Obasa, and the House Clerk. Also included in the suit are Fatai Mojid, Chairman of the ad hoc committee set up by the House to probe the procurement of the buses, and 8 other members of the committee. The inquiry was triggered by an allegation that Ambode's administration procured more than 800 buses without due appropriation processes. The former governor's lawsuit is contesting the constitutionality of the bus probe. The lawsuit claims the buses were procured based on budgetary approval as part of the bus reform project of the state government. It appears Nigeria will lose one of its biggest oil companies, Chevron. Reuters news agency is reporting that Chevron has decided to leave Nigeria and divest itself from Nigeria oil fields. It wants to return home to the U.S. to search for gold in the shale fields in Texas and Mexico. Reuters quoted sources to say the company has started discussing with buyers to sell some of its onshore and near offshore assets in Nigeria. The website shows it has a 40% stake in 8 offshore oil blocks with the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, which holds a 60% stake in the fields. The oil giant is Nigeria's 3rd largest oil producer. As of last year, it was pumping close to 200,000 barrels of crude per day. It also delivered more than 200 million cubic feet of natural gas daily and 6,000 barrels of liquefied petroleum gas. Reuters says Royal Dutch Shell and ExxonMobil are divesting from fossil fuel assets in the country. Now to education. Sex for grades. That is a subject that has taken up a great deal of talk time in the country lately, and the federal government has contributed its readers' minds to the debate. It has told female students stop going to lectures unnecessarily. The federal government says it is embarrassed by increased allegations of sexual misconduct in the country's tertiary institutions. Minister of Education Adamu gave the advice to female students during the formal presentation of sexual harassment policy judgment by the University of Port Harcourt. on Tuesday at the National Assembly in Abuja. This document released follows the recent BBC Sex for Grace television expose on Nigeria's universities. The minister urged students to take their studies seriously to avoid undue exposure to sexual predators. University of Port Harcourt's Vice Chancellor, Professor Nduwa Lale, said the institution frowns at sexual misconduct and was taking steps to tackle the menace. Senate President Ahmad Lawan says Nigeria should maintain the current bicameral form of legislature that consists of the Senate and House of Representatives. He said the framers of the nation constitution adopted bicameral legislature to address the country's diversity and ethnic composition. The Senate President said this was to ensure justice, equity and fairness for all Nigerians irrespective of their background. Lawan was speaking earlier this week at the third convocation ceremony of the University of Benin, National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies at the National Assembly in Abuja. Lawan said having a unicameral legislature may create problems of non-representation and exclusion from governance for minority ethnic groups in the country. He said it would also create inefficient representation for groups in the majority. Coming up, African stories. Dozens trapped underground after deadly landslide. And later, international news. UK lawmakers back December 12 general election.
Dear mommy, you went out that night with the baby in your tummy, but you did not come back. The baby is very fine and she eats and sleeps a lot. Everyone says that you are in a better place, but I miss you so much. I keep asking them, where is the better place? But nobody answers me. Auntie Kemi just hugs me and says, go and play. Mommy, I miss you. Please, when are you coming home?
I still do miss you, Mom. And in honor of your memory, I'm a doctor today working with the MTN Foundation to save mothers and children every day.
Ending mother and child mortality in Nigeria is dear to us. We will keep strengthening this most important bond just for you.
Welcome back. This is CNN News. Now to African stories. Central African Republic is the latest country to be hit with floods. The Red Cross and CAR says on Tuesday the worst flood in 2 decades has left at least 28,000 persons homeless. Torrential rains have pounded the country for several days, causing the Ubangi River and its tributaries to overflow. The government said the disaster is a huge natural catastrophe. Red Cross president in the country, Anthony Mbagobo, said the entire neighborhoods across the former French colony are underwater. Thousands are also rendered homeless there. The capital, Bangui, with a population of about 1 million, is also affected by floods, bringing down mud homes in the area. Floods in parts of Africa, in central Somalia, western Cameroon, Ghana and Nigeria are wreaking havoc with damage to properties and rising death tolls. At least 42 persons, including 26 children, have been killed overnight in a landslide caused by heavy rains in western Cameroon. Cameroon Radio Television reported search operations resumed on Wednesday after it was stalled on Tuesday because of continued rain. 7 persons were rescued under the rubble in the town of Bafoussam in the Western Highlands. Regional Governor of Fonke, Augustin, said people had built houses on hilly ground despite government warnings, and a heavy downpour caused the ground to give way. At least 4,000 attendees, more than 150 startups, innovators, as well as 75 speakers and panelists have gathered in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia's capital, for the first ever African Innovation Week to create a platform where young innovators and venture capitalists can meet. Guram Chala reports from Addis Ababa.
Aimed at encouraging innovation across the continent, this Africa Innovation Week has created a platform for African innovators, especially startups, to create more jobs for the youth of the continent. The Ethiopian government, alongside the African Union Commission and IBA, Ethiopia's Center for Innovation, have collaborated to put this gathering together.
Events like this Innovation Africa Week helps us a lot to bring investors from anywhere in the world to startups and innovators in Africa. So this platform, the main reason why we are coordinating, we are partnering with African Union Commission and IBA based in Norway, and also with the support of the Royal Norwegian government, is that it brings investors and innovators together.
The event is attended by stakeholders and innovators from Ethiopia, Nigeria, South Africa, Ghana and Kenya, among others.
This is a very good opportunity because it brings some of the brightest minds in Africa across to come together and analyze our ideas, look at our industries and try to push it forward. So if we can innovate in each industry in Africa, we can surely push Africa forward. Bringing forward thinkers, problem solvers, we can obviously innovate in each industry. So that's the rationale behind the event, which is a very brilliant one.
We need to start up and new ideas to solve our problems, because there are a lot of problems that needs to be solved and really managed. So as an Innovation Week, African Innovation Week will help solve these problems by helping this starting up business and starting up innovation. So it's an important week and an important event for me.
Policy makers and experts alike emphasize on better investment in innovation startups in Africa for a brighter future for the youth.
In 2019, there is a list of 30 highest priority or encouraging world ecosystem, and none of African cities are among the lists. I think it's time that we start investing into the startup ecosystem, into the incubation ecosystem.
The 6 days event will be featuring thematic areas that include women innovation, entrepreneurship, agri-tech, smart cities, health and tourism tech, and hospitality, as well as trade and investment. All important areas of growth for Africa.
When we return, international news. Brexit on hold as British lawmakers back December 12 general elections. And later, sports. CAF approves Uyo as match venue for 2021 AFCON qualifier between Super Eagles and Benin Republic. Welcome back. This is ANN News, the news from around the world. U.S. lawmakers, both Republicans and Democrats, clashed on Tuesday over questions about the identity of the whistleblower whose complaints led to the impeachment investigation of President Donald Trump. Republicans say the need to hear from the intelligence official who initially raised the alarm over Trump's attempts to get Ukraine to investigate his political rivals in order to assess the whistleblower's credibility. But Democrats insist the whistleblower's safety would be at a risk if he is exposed. Democrats say his testimony is not needed at this point because it has been corroborated by other witnesses. Government personnel have been assigned to protect the whistleblower, and as many as 5 possible names for the whistleblower have circulated in political circles. The whistleblower's lawyers have told congressional investigators their client is only interested in answering written questions. Meanwhile, Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives have published a resolution setting out the next steps in their impeachment effort against President Donald Trump. The motion sets out a more public face of the inquiry and hands the lead role in hearings to the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff. The House, being controlled by Democrats, will vote on the measure on Thursday. So far, hearings have been held behind closed doors. The vote to make the impeachment process public is about the procedure and not a ballot on whether or not to impeach the president. Britain's House of Commons voted on Tuesday night for a snap general election on December the 12th, which is set to send the country to go to the polls for the first time in December in nearly 100 years. More than 46 million people in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland will take part in what will be the first December parliamentary election since 1923.
British voters are going back to the polls for yet another Brexit-forced general election on December the 12th. The hope that it'll break Britain's Brexit logjam either way. But will it? UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson's hopes of getting Britain out of the European Union by Halloween, quote, do or die, are now as dead as a dodo. This is, of course, all high-risk stuff. And there are dangers for the UK Prime Minister, who promised Britain would be out of the EU by the end of October. Well, it's not going to be, and he's heading into a general election at the coldest, darkest time of year. It's quite possible voters could punish him for his careless words. Something could be sorted out if a clear majority comes from the election, either for or against Brexit. Trouble is that not just Parliament has been made unworkable by Brexit. The voting patterns in Britain have been completely fractured as well. People's loyalty is no longer along party lines, but rather attitudes to Brexit. No one knows where those votes will fall.
Turkey has rejected the U.S. overwhelming vote labeling of the Armenian genocide a century ago. The U.S. House of Representatives voted 405 to 11 in support of a resolution calling the early 20th century killing of Armenians by Ottoman Turks genocide. Turkey's foreign ministry said in a statement, the resolution, which has been drafted and issued for domestic consumption, is devoid of any historical or legal basis. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi describes it as one of the great atrocities of the 20th century. The systematic murder of more than 1.5 million Armenian men, women and children by the Ottoman Empire. Although Turkey accepts that many Armenians died in ethnic fighting and deportations during World War I, but rejected the label of genocide. Turkey's presidential spokesman Ibrahim Kalin says the Armenian resolution of the U.S. House of Representatives is one of the embarrassing examples of using history as a tool of politics. The Armenian terror group Asala, founded in 1975, is responsible for hundreds of bloody terrorist attacks. Hong Kong's embattled leader Carrie Lam said on Tuesday she expects the Asian financial hub to record negative economic growth for the full 2019 year as the city grapples with 5 months of often violent anti-government protests. Lam was speaking 2 days after Financial Secretary Paul Chan said Hong Kong has fallen into recession and was unlikely to achieve any growth this year.
There are several significant points in Carrie Lam's press conference. First of all, Hong Kong's chief executive warned that it's very likely for Hong Kong's economy to enter a technical recession in 2019, and it would be extremely difficult to achieve an annual growth target of between 0 and 1% this year. Hong Kong's yearly GDP figure could also end in negative growth this year. And the Hong Kong SAR government has poured 20 billion Hong Kong dollars to stimulate the economy.
Based on the current evaluation, all sectors are likely to have a negative growth in the entire 2019.
And she also called for the opposition parties to put aside political differences and work together to revive the economy. In response to some rumors saying that the central government in Beijing might move Carrie Lam out of her position, Carrie Lam strongly dismissed Financial Times reports. She said the central government has always supported her administration since the very beginning of the protest, and that support has stayed firm and active as it was 4 months ago. When talking about the unrest, she said the most critical mission now is to tackle the violence head-on.
The most effective solution is to tackle the violence head-on. For the government to resort to measures that will appease the violent rioters, I don't think that is a solution. And I feel that many of Hong Kong people, yes, they may have some unhappiness and grievances about the government policies, about the government handling of this major crisis. But the time now is really to put in all our efforts to say no to violence in order to have a chance to put an end to this extreme violence that we have seen.
Up next, sports.
CAF approves Uyo as match venue for 2021 AFCON qualifier between Super Eagles and Benin Republic. Please stay with us. Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sport. The Confederation of African Football has approved the Godswill Akpabio International Stadium in Uyo as venue for the 2021 AFCON qualifier between the Super Eagles and Benin Republic, scheduled for mid-November. There were arguments about where the match would take place and what time for kickoff. An NFF official says CAF chose the venue because it was in a better shape than the Benin and the Sabah Stadium. While the Benin Stadium is undergoing renovations ahead of the 2020 National Sports Festival, Eagles coach General and his players have reportedly complained about the poor pitch of the Sabah Stadium. Tokyo 2020 has unveiled the completed gymnastics center with a traditional Japanese-style facility. The 12,000 capacity venue is set to host artistic, rhythmic and trampoline gymnastics and competitions during the Olympic Games. The organizers claim the on-time completion is evidence their preparations for the Games are on track. Organizers claim the venue features one of the largest timber roofs in the world. The artistic gymnastics competition begins July next year. Medals will be won in artistic gymnastics from July 27. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV.